What's up, witches? Welcome to my channel. I'm Luna. If you're new here, please consider subscribing. If you're not new here, hit the like button, and or you could wait to find out if you actually like the video. I'm here for an unboxing today, and full disclosure, I have already used this deck in a live stream a couple nights ago, but that also gives me more information. So let's take a look. This deck is a gift. It's a deck that I purchased from a donation made by my viewer Laura in Florida, so thank you so much, Laura, and the reading that I do in the test drive will be for you. This is the Wisdom Keepers Oracle Deck and Inner Guidebook. 64 Faces of Awakening by Rosie Aronson, PhD. Includes 65 oracle cards and a 165-page guidebook, plus bonus card. I know what that is already because, like I said, I've looked at the deck, and also I've seen it on other people's videos. So what I haven't done is gone through card by card and looked at this deck. So there's still some things to be revealed, which is nice. Two-part box, sturdy box. Gazing into the 64 Faces of Awakening is a unique contemplative door to an inner space of surrender and serenity. Work with these wisdom keepers in your daily life, and you will open up this secret door inside your heart. They are here to soothe and soften the soul and to invoke the very best of our human qualities and aspirations. The cards are extraordinary, and that is a quote by Richard Rudd. Come celebrate the soul of the world, a miraculous multiplicity of one, as revealed in the magical Wisdom Keepers Oracle deck. This deck is an empowering tool of self-acceptance and understanding, a playful way to embrace our shadows with love and uncover the gifts only we can bring to the world. These 64 Wisdom Keepers offer direct, heartfelt ways to work with the emotions, fears, and challenges we all face. They embody archetypal themes and concepts found in the 64 hexagrams of the I Ching. Oh! And, pardon me, explored in Richard Rudd's profound visionary book, The Gene Keys. I don't know anything about that. The Wisdom Keepers Oracle deck includes 64 plus 1 cards and a 165-page inner guidebook, where the Wisdom Keepers share their teachings through intimate stories, contemplative questions, and practical suggestions for how to access your wisdom, open to your gifts, and fulfill your potential. The Wisdom Keepers believe in you. They see your beauty, power, and potential. Wisdomkeepers.net is the site, and this is Seal Pup Press. I have never heard of, this could be self-published, but I know I do not have any other decks from Seal Pup Press. So let's go in. Easy opening box. We've got the little, grippies on the side and a beautiful little dragonfly inside the lid. Here's the book. Nice chunky book. And pretty much the same. Okay, here's something about the artist. Rosie Aronson, PhD, is an inspirational artist, author, and counselor. Her deepest intention is to provide empowering tools for people to awaken to their gifts and bloom into their authentic selves. In addition to this deck and guidebook, Rosie has created the 64 Faces of Awakening art project and coloring book, the Designed to Blossom foundational course and resource book in human design, Walking a Fine Line, How to Be a Professional Wisdom Keeper in the Healing Arts, and A Tale of Serendipity. So she's published a lot. And when I used this deck the other night, I drew 3 cards, and I went straight to the meanings in the book. So the part that I have not seen is the beginnings of the book. This is copyright 2015-2016. So first edition color deck 2016. I watched a couple unboxings of this before I purchased it, and there was a black and white version. We have a poem, Dragonfly Wings, by La Belle Rouge. We have The Human Face. Let's read this one because it's shorter. The infinite writes her stories on the contours of the face, the ultimate reality shining forth from living mirrors. The seeker need only cast their gaze upon this holy countenance. Lost in open receptivity, absorbed in living light, all other disappears, all other in quotes, disappears as we breathe alone, together, face to face with the mystery. And that's by Tanmayo Lawson, premtanmayo.com. All right. It takes a village, so this is the dedication. The human face, the creative process, birth of the stories. 64, The Gene Keys by Richard Rudd, How to Approach the Wisdom Keepers, and the 65 Wisdom Keepers Speak. Then they are in sets of 10. And then card spreads and suggestions for their use. Spread for establishing an intentional relationship with a Wisdom Keeper. Wisdom Keeper Tonglen. That's a Tibetan Buddhist practice that I'm very familiar with, so that's kind of exciting. Understanding the color code. Resources for going deeper. I'm going to look up the Gene Keys chapter and the color code on page 164. So, Gene Keys by Richard Rudd. 15. Let's see how long that chapter is. It's long enough, but let's see if we can get a clue. What are the Gene Keys? Understanding some essential elements of the Gene Keys will facilitate your use of the Wisdom Keepers Oracle deck. The Gene Keys is a body of knowledge aimed to help transform our core self-beliefs, expand our consciousness, and release our individual creative genius into the world. There are 64 universal archetypes that lie at the heart of the Gene Keys. The 64 Gene Keys correspond to the 64 hexagrams of the Yi Jing, the 64 codons of our human DNA, and the 64 Wisdom Keepers in this deck. Each of the Wisdom Keepers reflects and transmits the essence of their particular archetype through a unique story. Their stories are here to illuminate how each of the archetypes can play out in our lives and how they transcend culture, ethnicity, race, religion, and age, weaving together a tapestry of psychology, sociology, mysticism, and indigenous understanding. The Wisdom Keepers have the power to catalyze a profoundly transformative and mystery-celebrating journey in you. So I still don't understand. All right. The Wisdom Keeper is in part inspired by the work of Richard Rudd, a teacher of world mythology, an award-winning poet, and the author of The Gene Keys, Unlocking the Higher Purpose Hidden in Your DNA. Hold on. Sorry. While this oracle deck stands happily on its own, it is also intended to act as a warm welcome into the world of the Gene Keys. I highly recommend that anyone who feels drawn to this deck consider exploring the Gene Keys book or participating in the growing online Gene Keys community. They will greatly enrich your Wisdom Keeper experience. Okay, so not a whole lot of information there. I want to see about the final note, understanding the color code. As you'll notice, certain Wisdom Keepers share a color. This is intentional in that they belong to the same soul group, or what Richard Rudd calls the 21 codon rings in the Gene Keys. Below I've described which Wisdom Keepers are associated with the same codon rings or soul family. For more information, refer to the Gene Keys book. So we have the Ring of Fire, the Ring of Water, each having 2, the Ring of Life and Death, which has 6 cards. The ring, it's all the ring of something. Fire, water, life and death, union, light, alchemy, humanity, trials, purification, seeking, prosperity, matter, Gaia, illusion, no return, destiny, miracles, divinity, origin, the Illuminati, and the whirlwind. Fascinating stuff here. Back here we have many spreads. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So 11 different spreads. All right. Setting this aside, no, we will also look and see that each card has a little I guess, synopsis paragraph. So this card is sensitivity, and this says the gift of sensitivity is about being highly attuned to the needs of others. In order to sense others and their needs, you must first become independent from them. We have gift, shadow, siddhi, and programming partner, Richard Rudd. So I guess that's a gene key thing. Then there's my wisdom story, my gift to you, and questions for contemplation. So let's go. I hit my bell. Isn't that nice? All right. We have another little dragonfly there. And here are the cards. Now, they're massive. You know, they are massive cards. I like this because it gives you a big work of art to look at, a large image to look at so you can really see detail. However, if you've been with me for a while, you know that I get grumpy when publishers and authors lose sight of functionality in their decks. I think number one, if you're going to create a deck or publish a deck, you need to start with what it's used for, why someone would buy the deck. They're not buying a series of paintings to hang on their wall. They are buying a tool for divination. It needs to be shuffleable. And I mentioned that I used it on a live stream. I tried a couple riffle shuffles, and then I went to a cut shuffle. And before I hit the record button, I went to put them back in sequence, and I noticed that there were still sequences of up to 10 cards that were still sequential. So even that I think it was 3 riffle shuffles and then a bunch of cut shuffles, did not thoroughly mix the cards. The back is beautiful. I love this image of a key with dragonfly wings, and if you can see it much better on camera than I can because they're also glossy, and there's a big glare for me. But we've got little yin-yang symbols here. And before I go any further, let's zoom in. I don't really have to zoom in as far as I usually do because the cards are so massive. So, you know, when people do reviews and talk about cardstock and it's like, ooh, this good quality, I mean, there's no doubt about it. Taken on its own, this is good, what would be considered good quality cardstock. But taken in the context of the function, what this deck is for, it's not good cardstock because it's very difficult to shuffle. So now we get to what caused me to buy this deck. Look at this artwork. It's just glorious. There is so much color and design. Look at the little, looks almost like 4-leaf clovers, but it's 4 hearts in a configuration. Is that Sankofa? I don't think so. Anyway, you know, just the design elements. Look at the butterflies on her nose. But most of all, look at the eyes. This is what brought me into this deck. Just that loving gaze, the softness of the images, the richness of the images, but most of all, the expressiveness of the images. One of the reasons that I went for the Hanson Roberts deck over the Rider-Waite. Rider-Waite was my first. Hanson Roberts was a gift. And the reason that one has rung my bell so hard for so many years now is because of the expressiveness of the faces. So this is the number 1 card, and her keyword is freshness. And right off the rip, we have diversity. Here's orientation. This looks very much like an Aboriginal from Australia. And look, you know, the dark palette here, but look at the eyes again. So alive. And here we have innovation. Look at the blossoms in her cheeks. these, when I saw some reviews of this deck, what it felt like was guides. It felt like these were guides offering themselves to me. Here's understanding. And so you're not going to get imagery like in other oracle decks where you'll have a keyword and the artwork illustrates what's going on with that keyword. You can't really do that here. But these are embodiments. These figures are embodiments of these keywords. So here's understanding. And let's talk about the representation of age and cronehood. So appreciative. Patience, and again we have representation of age. I love it so much. There are decks that I have that, I think one was the Dark Goddesses deck, where they're showing, you know, what's supposed to be old women and crones, but what it looks like is young, slim women wearing old age makeup. You know, they don't look like true elders, and this deck certainly has true elders in it. So there's patience, diplomacy, and interesting the cultures that are represented, you know, with this headscarf here with that kind of onion dome with the moons and stars. So we have allusions to Islam. Guidance. I mean, look at the gray hair. So how many elders have we had? Many in these first 7 cards. Style. Sorry. Just beautiful. Determination. Look at the hamsas. Naturalness. Look at how her hair looks like bamboo. And there's little teapots. It looks like teapots, and these look like little spermies. And this looks, I mean, there's so much, there is a lot in the imagery that you could look at, and I'm interested to see if those images are mentioned in the meanings. This is idealism. Look at the little pigtails. Discrimination. Again, that very penetrating gaze, but soft as well. And the age that's represented, they're just beautiful. These people all have their very own faces. I see Lotus here. This is, you know, I'm reminded of Thich Nhat Hanh somewhat in that face. Here's discernment. Competence. I love that we have male and female. We have young and old. We have various cultures. There's a, that looks like Northwest almost, indigenous. But I'm not sure because there's a toucan there too. Magnetism. Versatility. Look at the wrinkles around the eyes. Farsightedness. I love that he's wearing glasses. Integrity. Oh, isn't she? You know who this is? That's Yoko Ono, you guys. Check it out. With the hat, you know, she wears kind of that top hat. That's what I see anyway. And you want to talk about someone with integrity? Yes. Sensitivity. Just beautiful. This reminds me of someone, what I see here is like Russian culture, the babushkas, you know. Self-assurance. Oh, look at that little grin. Kind of an impish grin. He reminds me of someone and I can't think of who it is. Authority. Yes. He's very Jesus-y looking. Graciousness. Look how large this face is. So You know, we have faces kind of back, but we get to graciousness, and she's right here, giving herself to us. Simplicity. Oh, this is the first one we've seen that is a profile. Invention. There's Albert. Maybe that's what that other guy was. Kind of similar. Acceptance. Artfulness. Like I said, if you recognize any of these faces, please comment. I'd like to know what you're seeing. Altruism. There's Cocopelli, so we have Native or First Nations American, North American. Totality. This is the first one that kind of goes a little beyond just human face, more into abstract. You know, the lips look like they are, oh, looky, those lips are shown here. So the back of the cards are a monochrome of that image. Wow. When I was looking at the backs, that caught my attention because I couldn't quite tell what it is. So these lips almost look like they're two separate things coming together, like petals coming together to show lips. There we have the Om symbol, commitment. Oh, Robin. Lightness. Oh, look at those blue eyes. There is no mistaking that face. Leadership. Again, we have First Nations symbolism. Preservation. Now we have South American First Nations. Mindfulness. Certainly a monk that needs a head shave. Strength. That's a sumo. Look at the Torii Gate. The sun. The fans. Gorgeous. Adventure. Humanity. Equality. And I want to say, I feel like the majority of the people in this deck are people of color. And I love that. That looks like Prince's symbol, doesn't it? Equality. I'm not sure what that symbol is. Perseverance. So if I say I'm not sure about something and you know, please comment. Here's perseverance. Oh, look at this. Wow. Dynamism. And again, do you see this in the images? Not, you know, the keyword? Not really. If I was looking at these faces, would I be able to pull meaning out of it? Not so much. So I really feel like this is a deck that you create relationships with. There's Bastet, resolve. Anticipation. Non-attachment. There we go. There's a monk. Look at the chakras. Insight. You're a wizard, Harry. I mean, it's not, but the glasses, you know. Teamwork. Look at the braid and the beard. I love this androgyny. Synergy. Delight. We have a toothy grin. Isn't it beautiful? I just love this woman's grasp of individual faces. You know, some artists, when they do faces, you can tell, and I mean, you can tell, there's a cohesion about the style of art, but they all have their own faces. Transmutation. Resourcefulness. Revolution. Oh, now we really see some youth here. Equilibrium. Oh, hi, John. So we have both John and Yoko in this deck. Isn't that amazing? Initiative. Another monk-like figure. Restraint. Expansion. Oh, look at the color. Aspiration. Freedom. enrichment, intuition. The Aries and the Libra signs, and there's Sag and Aquarius, and yeah, we've got astrological symbols everywhere. Vitality, intimacy. Look at that short white hair. Realism, inspiration, precision, inquiry, imagination, and here's the 65th special card, giving you an image of my overhead camera. This is a protective film to peel off, and I'm going to do that. I watched another review where the person's like, no, I'm not going to do that, I'm going to keep it nice. But for whom are you keeping it nice? Look at that. Oh, hi there. So you indeed are in this deck as well. That's very cool. All right. Now comes the hard part. Be right back. Okay, the hard part being shuffling the thing. I might hit this with some fanning powder because that glossy finish can stick to itself sometimes. I mean, there's not a chance. Well, let's find out. No, see, I cannot get my fingers. Ooh, I can feel my everything stretching, so I'm not going to do that. Let's see if we can shuffle this way. And again, they kind of come away in clumps, but we'll do that a couple of times. And you know what? Let's also light the charcoal and bless this deck, because I have not yet. I mean, I did give it a bit of an offering Wednesday before I used it, but go, go, go. So let's give it the full blessing. So by fire and air, it is cleansed, purified and charged. And by water and earth, it's blessed and made whole. And by the bell, there we go, we cleanse with spirit. And by the offering of fire of Azrael, we bring in the spirit of divination and also make an offering to guides and guardians, allies and ancestors, as we also offer fresh water to them. All right, let's try this riffle again. I'm going to get a little bit tougher with it this time. See, I mean, they won't bend sideways. They absolutely won't. So this is a deck that you might want to mix in a different way. And I mean, the back is directional, so you'd certainly be able to tell if you flip them upside down, if you do like the messing around. So preservation came out, but I'm not done messing with them like this yet. Okay, so we're going to keep, and I think for you, Laura, what's happening here? Oh, it's the mirror card. So this is kind of a problem, unless that mirror card is bigger. Can you see where it is? It's right there. So to use this and look for that card to come up in a reading, can you see where it is? It's right there. So this is, you're going to have to find a way to pick blind that doesn't deal with shuffling. So what I'm going to do is close my eyes and cut. I'm going to pick 3 cards, And I just heard in my mind inner, outer, and I don't know what the last one is, but we're going to do 3 cards. I'm not going to even look at the readings in the book right now because this is going to be long regardless, and I really want to get to reading. Okay, so for Laura in Florida, show me the advice for the inner. Preservation. So this card really, really wanted to come out. And see, this is the value of shuffling things back in, because when they come out repeatedly, it really makes an impact. I will mention that on Wednesday, this card also came out for a reading. Okay, for Laura, the outer. Diplomacy. And then you're telling me shuffle again. And I'm hearing the all together. And we have sensitivity. So I also want to tell you that even with my eyes closed, I can tell you exactly where that mirror card is. It's right there. So that's just something to be aware of as far as divination goes. You're not going to get a good randomization of the cards by shuffling in any conventional way. You might just have to do the smear around on the bed or the table and put them all back together. Anyhow, page 32, preservation, or card 32, sorry. Now, I am going to read this whole thing for at least this first card, probably not for all of them. So the little italicized paragraph up here, as we listen to the great wisdom of our ancestors and of the indigenous tribal cultures, we will once again find our correct inner spirit. So this is preservation. So right away, just intuitively, it's talking about the things that are worth keeping, the identities that are passed down to us through our culture, the traditions, the rituals, the celebrations, what is worth preserving, that we need to preserve the things that are worthy. The gift is preservation, the shadow is failure, the siddhi is veneration. Now, I had to look up siddhi. I think it's kind of like a spiritual practice. I'm going to look it up again here. And I want to see if she talks about, okay, how to approach them. With each wisdom keeper, you will find a number. So that's associated with the Yi Jing. 3 words, shadow, gift, shadow, and siddhi, as described earlier. Okay, where does she describe that earlier? The sacred role of the shadow. Yeah, it's going to be hard to just kind of try to find. Okay, siddhi. When we have entered a pure state of expansion and have completely surrendered our sense of separateness into the whole, we have entered the realm of siddhi. So siddhi I would take as union with spirit. So I can shut my browser again. Okay. So veneration. So the siddhi and when it says veneration, perhaps that's more like a practice. Let me take a look here. Or just the experience of union with that. I'm having a hard time finding words here. And programming partner is 42. Let's see. Symbols. Questions for contemplation. I'm interested in what programming partner is. Perhaps, another card that you work with together. This is going to take some reading, that's for sure. So the programming partner is detachment, preservation. Okay. My wisdom story. My younger brother and I were trained in the sacred medicine tradition. We lived side by side in the rainforest, each with our own simple camp. We always shared everything we had and served the same local community until a foreigner came to one of my brother's ceremonies and was so transformed by the experience that he spread the word far and wide about my brother's healing powers. Soon people started flying in from all over the world to work with my brother. At first I was happy for him, but over time I watched his small camp turn into a retreat center and watched him travel to distant countries to share our medicine and tradition with strange people who knew nothing about our ways. He brought back objects and healing practices I didn't recognize. Even the way he pruned, weeded, and brewed the medicine seemed new. His plants thrived in ways that made me feel uncomfortable. A constriction and anger took hold of my chest. I believed this was because he was betraying our ancestors and that it was my job to preserve the traditions. When my students showed curiosity about my brother, I acted like a true fundamentalist, in italics, forbidding them from visiting his center, warning them against his tainted ways. When my brother reached out to me with gifts, I refused them until he gave up. My community shrank like my heart. Slowly, my medicine began to lose its potency. My prayers stopped working. The animals stopped communicating with me. I felt disjointed, and there are italicized words here: constriction, fundamentalist, disjointed. I was as cut off from the great Creator as I was from my brother. Sensing my soul's suffering, he reached out to me one last time. I was shocked to see the pain in his eyes. It had never occurred to me that his soul was also suffering. He had been missing me, my love and guidance, and he feared I had rejected and disapproved of everything he did. It was then I realized that my own fear of failure had blinded me to my brother's humanity. I took his hand in mine, and ever since, we've been each other's teacher, student, and best friend. Our community and medicine are thriving. Now, I am very curious. I want to read about Rosie Aronson. As an artist, author, and blossoming guide with a master's in expressive arts therapy and a doctorate in intuitive listening and creative arts. Wow. In addition to this oracle, she's created 64 Faces of Awakening and the coloring book and the things we read about on the back. Her deepest intention is to provide empowering tools for people to awaken to their gifts and bloom into their authentic selves. An avid permission giver, pressure dissolver, and embracer of the unknown, Rosie believes we are literally designed to blossom, and the more each of us radically trusts, honors, and expresses our true nature, the more magic we can create together. Rosie holds the vision that over time the 64 Faces of Awakening will be invited into homes, galleries, retreat centers, public buildings, meditation halls, yoga studios, and schools so that more and more people can bask in the warm presence and compassion of these wise beings. Do you know what I was looking for here? I was looking to see whether this is her story or this is a story. This is this person's story. And again, androgyny, I sense male, but maybe not. Okay, so we were talking about the story there gave me a message of the risk of becoming dogmatic and the delicate balance that happens when we preserve traditions. We can preserve them in a way that is like setting them in stone, at which point they stop breathing. And I mean, this happens in any folk tradition, folk music, in the blues. I have a lot of music references as a musician, but there are always the faction of people that think that, that are purists. We have to have it this way. And then there are people that are bringing the tradition into the present and, are forward-looking into the future, that are informed and inspired by the roots and then make sure it's living and breathing. We have to have both. We need to preserve the origins so that we can go back and tap into that, deep well of inspiration. And we also need to update things so that they can continue to speak to the present population, and so that there is permission to take these traditions into a future, so so that they remain relevant. in the present time. Okay, so preservation. Now, my gift to you, this may not make sense, but it is true. When you refuse to receive, you are being selfish. If you truly long to experience success, then you must let go of the entire concept of success and failure. It is not your desire for money or outer recognition that you need to overcome. It is your fear of failure. I'm here to encourage you to trust your instincts and reach beyond your comfort zone. The gift of preservation is all about preserving life itself, not just yourself. It requires that you learn from and ground yourself in the wisdom of your ancestors. It also asks you not to be afraid to learn and invest in something new or to receive from those who inspire you. It's time to look at your life and determine what and who are worthy of your energy and good for the whole, and see what you want to keep alive and honor that with your whole heart. So it does talk about what is worthy of preserving in your own life, you know, as far as your own traditions, your own ancestral story. But it's interesting that the whole thing of success and failure comes in, because that is not a place that I would go ever if I'm exploring intuitively the word preservation, the concept of preservation. I would not ever get to success and failure. And this was something I kind of ran into on my live stream, as I was having a hard time connecting the gift part with the keyword. But, you know, that's a small thing. Questions for contemplation. I really appreciate that a lot of decks that are being published, a lot of authors are including these questions, so that, you know, these are doorways. These are doorways into the author's intention. Where are you flourishing? Okay, so to Laura, the inner. I said inner, outer, and all together. So the inner here talks about, you know, preservation for you. What resonates for you? Where do you feel your internal connection to your ancestors, to your story, to your history, to, and, you know, this isn't just about looking at, sorry, there was a hair caught in my ring. This isn't just about looking at preserving like cultural traditions, but you also need to look at what has been preserved as far as generational trauma and what is not worth preserving. So, you know, I think we have to look at both sides of the coin. It was talking about success and failure and overcoming your fear of failure. And like I said, I still can't relate that to preservation, neither here nor there. I would say internally, just what do you feel connected with? What is worth preserving? How can you bring those things into the present, particularly if you have children and people that you want to pass some things down to? You have a legacy to think about. So the inner is what do you feel truly connected to internally? By the same token, where do you feel estranged from your history, from your culture, you know, your ancestry? And what might be worth looking back at to what has not been preserved? For instance, me growing up, I had heard Hungarian about my father's family. Turns out not, Slovakian. But there were no traditions that came from my father's family, because it was a traumatized family. So I felt disconnected and estranged from that side of the family. But in recent years, I've been going back through genealogy, but also just going back through reading about the cultures so that I can reclaim what is a birthright for me. So that's the inner. Finding where you feel connected, also finding where you feel disconnected. Look at what you want to preserve and hand down. The outer is diplomacy. Well, that matches. I have a voice box full of gunk today. Okay. Emotional maturity means that your awareness operates even during the most profound emotional states. So again, emotional maturity, and we have diplomacy. Okay, so you read that paragraph, and would you think diplomacy if the word were not on this card? No, but I can connect it because it's talking about your having your awareness engaged even when you're in a profound emotional state, so that you can be diplomatic, so that communication can continue. And talking about emotional maturity means that you're keeping awareness of your behavior even when you're highly emotional. The gift is diplomacy, the shadow is conflict, the city is peace. So those track. All right. Where I grew up, tragedy and violence were all that we knew. Generations of my people had been traumatized and scarred, and conflict was everywhere between West and East, modern and ancient, wealthy and poor, men and women. As a young girl, I had little power. I could neither speak against the injustices I witnessed in the world nor the abuses that happened at home. Always afraid of attack, my body was on a constant state of alert. On the outside, I was over-attentive, the peacemaker. At any sign of conflict, I'd smooth out the waters. But on the inside, I was nervous and insecure. I feared all men and people that were different from my own. I put up walls around my heart. Once I lost control and lashed out, blaming my father for being a bully and my mother for being a victim, blaming entire nations for harming my people and my people for letting them. My tactless words cut like knives. Overcome with guilt and fear, I begged for forgiveness, spending the next weeks punishing myself and pleasing everyone around me. But the incessant pleasing, like the ruthless blaming, only made things worse. It wasn't until I was invited to visit a local peace group by my great-aunt that everything changed. I'd never seen men and women sitting together, listening, supporting, and inspiring each other with such open hearts, honesty, and respect. They were neither guarded nor reactive. And for the first time, I experienced the kind of peace and love I'd been longing for my whole life. In the safety of my aunt's embrace, my defenses dropped. I finally faced the pain, powerlessness, and loneliness I'd been hiding from myself and everyone else. I became the leader of this organization for many years, but now I find that peace simply happens wherever I go. The stories are really wonderful illustrations here of this keyword. So, going to here, you might not get that. The stories are really, really, really helpful. So it contrasts being truly diplomatic and being emotionally mature with being that frantic peacemaker that is just trying to calm the waters at any cost out of their own trauma. My gift to you, I'm here to invite you to drop your defenses, let down your guard, stop fighting against your own humanity by refusing to see, feel, and accept your inner demons. There's a way to calm emotional waters in your intimate relationships in the world without repressing or avoiding the truth. There's a way to dissolve seemingly insurmountable barriers to peace, to know precisely when it's time to act, when it's time to speak, and how to speak powerfully yet from the heart. The true path of peace and diplomacy requires that you fearlessly look at and embrace your own weaknesses. Don't protect yourself from your deepest emotions, and you will find that your timing, communication, and relationships will improve. I heartily agree with that. Naturally, others will want to confide in you, and you will sense just what is needed, even in the most emotionally volatile situations. Your very presence can have the power to shift the energy of a room or a relationship from one of conflict to peace. The questions for contemplation are: do you tend to avoid uncomfortable feelings through peacemaking or by overreacting and exacerbating conflict? Is there a current conflict in your life or a place where you are feeling defensive and your guard is up? What do you fear might happen if you stopped working so hard to please certain people? Oof! How can you take more responsibility for your feelings and express them in less reactive and more open, honest ways? In what area of your life is a little diplomacy needed? In what simple way can you cultivate peace in your life today? So for the outer, Laura, it's saying that you need to check the communications in your life and just what they said. Are there places where you're being very defensive even, or being very reactive to things because you've got like some raw wounds in there that keep getting triggered? So the conversation about things being preserved, the message that I'm getting here is you really have to heal your own trauma. I think that's a bottom line for every single human being in every single possible situation. When you have your own trauma healed, then you don't have those raw, tender spots that are so easy to re-wound, and that have you acting very defensive and not able to listen to what's coming from the other side and have that dialogue. You also need to be aware that defensiveness might actually be sort of an infected form of boundaries, that there might be places where you actually do need a boundary, but with your own trauma still feeling raw, instead of being able to set a healthy boundary, we get defensive and reactive, and that causes conflict and can actually fan the flames of conflict into like out and out war, So the need to look into your past and your ancestors, connect with what you feel is worthy of being preserved, and then really look at what healing you need to undergo, what forgiveness you need to give yourself in order to be present to the others around you, and make it so that you can dialogue about these things worth preserving. And it might be a conversation of kind of mutual healing or co-healing, healing a wound together. That if there's a familial wound and it's like one of those elephants in the room between you and someone else, can you enter into a dialogue so that you can talk about that shared experience in a way that allows you to heal? That's what I will say about that. Now, the altogether is sensitivity. This could also, well, let's just find out. The gift of sensitivity is about being highly attuned to the needs of others. In order to sense others and their needs, you must first become independent from them. So sensitivity is the gift. The shadow is codependence. That really tracks here too. The siddhi is sacrifice. And I am going to read the wisdom story because there's so much there. I was born in the old country where men took care of the money, women took care of the children, adults took care of the elders, and God took care of all of us. Traditions and customs made up the fabric of our lives, and we didn't question them. When my girls were little, my sensitivity was welcome. They'd have a need, and I'd meet it. For every runny nose, I had a tissue. For every cold, hot soup, and for every tear, a bosom to cry on. But as they grew older and as the world changed around us, my ability to sense what they felt and needed was shrinking. I'd give them good advice, and they'd accuse me of not listening. I'd cook them a nourishing meal, and they'd say it was unhealthy. I'd arrange for them to meet a nice boy, and they'd refuse to come out of the room. I'd even pray to God that he'd protect them, and they'd challenge he even existed. When they moved out, I called them every day. They called me codependent, saying they didn't want my worry. No matter how hard I tried to love them and be a good mother, no matter how often I told them how much I suffered in their absence, it didn't work. They just distanced themselves more and called me the needy one. Finally, I did the unthinkable. I turned my back on my own children. If they didn't need me, then I didn't need them. For a long time, I isolated myself and was miserable. Sure, I had failed as a mother. But eventually, my friends dragged me out of the house. A class here, a walk there. Then I started having the strangest dreams where animals would come talk to me. Soon, to my shock, the spirits of dead relatives and friends started showing up in my living room, bringing messages for me to pass along. Word got out about my extraordinary gifts. Friends and neighbors started coming to me with their depressed pets, wilting plants, and unresolved grief. I became quite a phenomenon in the neighborhood. Even my girls were intrigued. Now they come over all the time. I'm having so much fun with my own surprising life that I let them have fun with theirs in their own way. They even eat my food and take my advice now and then when they ask for it. My gift to you, I am here to celebrate your sensitivity in all the ways that you are tuned to the feelings and needs of the people in your life. Being of service is a wonderful thing. That said, when you offer your support, make sure that you are coming from a good place. Make sure you're happy with your own life and that you're not just trying to get your own needs met by meeting the needs of others. Whew. I can guarantee you people can smell hidden agendas. If you are isolating yourself because of hurt feelings, it's time to reach out for support. Your heart is too big and beautiful to close off for too long. Now, I want to say that there's a balance here as well, that when you heal your trauma, then you are free to let down your guard and become as sensitive as you are without taking on the trauma of others. When you have unhealed trauma, it's like you have a stringer trailing behind you. And other people with that kind of trauma, those stringers sort of get hooked together, and then you can fall into codependency with them, or people pleasing, or being a doormat, or, those kind of things. The siddhi, being sacrificed. Oh, it's a great question. Is my giving really sacrifice, and am I claiming martyrdom through that sacrifice? There's so much here. Wow. So the altogether here talks about, okay, let me read the questions for contemplation. Are you sacrificing too much because of your need to be needed? What signals does your body give you when you've been giving too much? Are you denying a real need of yours because depending on others feels scary? Do you isolate yourself and then resent people for not supporting you? Holy moly, it's like they know me. Are you clinging to your independence? What are you afraid might happen if you let yourself need someone or truly lean on them? How can you find a balance between caring for yourself and caring for others? What is healthy sensitivity? Healthy sacrifice. Whew. Okay. So going through this process of ancestral stories and diplomacy, healing of your own wounds so that you can then have conversations with others that might have experienced that collective trauma, diplomatically being able to listen to someone else's truth without being reactive or defensive. And this healing process lets you then be as sensitive as you really are. It gets you to that place of, as I say, observing, not absorbing. And understanding when you really have taken care of your own emotional needs and processed your own grief and trauma, you can just be present to others, and you understand that it's their job to take care of their own feelings. So it is less easy to become codependent and to fall into the untruth that you are responsible for their feelings. Maybe an action that you took that caused them to feel a certain way, but they are responsible for their interpretation of that action and for their feelings of what they're going to do about it. Most importantly, what they're going to do about it. So the truth is we are all responsible for our own feelings, our own trauma. But this is really a story about, reaching back into the past, of codependence, of healing those past wounds so that you can take the positive out of your family, your upbringing, your personal stories, and you can preserve those stories without handing on trauma. You can preserve those stories in the form of wisdom, which is very much worth handing on. And, we do know that family trauma gets handed down whether or not the behaviors are repeated. And it can skip a generation. So if we have addiction of any kind as part of a family, and then it kind of skips a generation, but it's going to rear its ugly head somewhere, looking for the pattern breaker, looking for the one that is going to stop and help to heal that trauma. And it is true that when you heal your trauma, you not only benefit your descendants, but you also benefit your ancestors, and you can redeem an image of them that is more human. Maybe if they've been demonized because they were horribly abusive. If you work on healing that generational trauma, you give them the gift of rehumanizing them, because you come to an understanding of they didn't have a choice in the matter they were traumatized to. And again, you can let that guard down, that hard shell, and be sensitive in the present moment to what is needed from you by others. So the big questions are about being in right relationship with these things, and looking at where your energy is given too much, and the red flag and the signpost to where you need to set boundaries is resentment. If you feel resentment about doing something for someone, whether they've asked you to do it or not, it is a signal that you're going too far, that either you're being taken advantage of, or you're allowing yourself to be taken advantage of, or you are being codependent. But resentment is a red flag. So anyway, Laura, God, this is an hour-long video. God, is this the price I pay for not doing as many unboxings? I don't know. But Laura, I hope that this resonated for you. This deck is incredible. I mean, there's definitely a lot of richness to be tapped into here. And so I thank you for that Yule gift that you sent me. And if you are interested in having me do a reading for you, look down below. There's an Amazon wish list with a shit ton of decks on it. And if you want to pick a deck that's not on that list, I think if you put a deck from that list in your cart, you can add something else that's not on that list, and then just delete the one that was in the cart, and it'll get sent to me. I think. Anyhow, thank you again so much, and thanks for hanging out. If you've stuck to the end of this video, you are a champion. Hit the like, subscribe, all that kind of stuff. I'll see you again on another unboxing or on a Wednesday night live stream. And until I see you, this is Luna. Blessed be.